defending the free market, and making the moral case for capitalism. The Justin Moore Show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Justin Moore Show. This is Justin Moore. Now guys, this has been a very difficult week for me. You know, you might notice my voice is a little bit different today. Actually, it's a lot better than it was yesterday. I've been suffering through a cold, and then I've been busy, combining barley. And if any of you have ever combined barley before, it's itchy, and when it's hot out, you just feel miserable. It's been long days and just a lot of stuff going on, and the cold has not made it any better. So I should be able to get through this, and so I'm glad I'm here. I barely made it, but I am here. And so actually on today's show, I want to talk about Greece. And basically what I want to try to do is I want to try to simplify what's going on in Greece and provide some background. Because you hear these pundits on TV, Greece doing this and that, bailing out here and there. You're like, what the heck is going on here? It's kind of confusing with all this sort of stuff. And so I want to try to provide some background. I want to try to make it easy to understand. And so all of us can be on the same page if you don't quite understand what's going on in Greece. Now, before you turn off this podcast, like, I don't give a crap about Greece. Greece is some little hellhole over there in the EU. Well, okay, I kind of agree with you there. Actually, I wouldn't mind to visit Greece someday. But anyway, just stick with me here. I'm going to try to make this fun and enjoyable. And at the same time, you can learn a little bit about Greece. So let's just start off here. Okay, so we have the European Union. It's made up of 19 countries, and they all use the same currency, the euro, okay? And now prior to a country joining the EU, the European Union, they have to abide by the Maastricht Treaty. And now the Maastricht Treaty limits, for countries that want to join the EU, it's kind of a test. Hey, we're not going to let you into the EU unless your government deficits are less than 3% of GDP and your public debt is under 60% of GDP. Okay? So when Greece went to go join the EU, I believe it was back in 99, Greece actually kind of used some creative accounting, and they lied about their debt levels. Their debt levels at the time actually exceeded the debt levels required by the Maastricht Treaty. Yeah, so they're just a bunch of liars. So here's Greece way back when they're already in debt, and they try to hide it, and they actually were successful. So they secretly joined the club, the EU. And so now Greece was thinking, oh man, this is awesome. We're now part of the EU. Now that we can use the euro, and this is great because now it's going to give us some credibility. The euro will provide us some stability, and this will mean that our country, Greece, will be a less risky place to invest. And so what does that mean when you are less risk to, say, an investor? Well, that means your interest rates come down. And so the interest rates on Greek debt were extremely low. And so guess what the Greeks did when they had very low interest rates on their debt? They actually they're like, well, now that debt is more manageable with the low interest rates, let's spend money. Let's become this socialist utopia. And so like a good bunch of socialists, that's what they did. They had this nice big government. And now this sort of mindset, like what Greece has, it's the same sort of mindset we have here in the United States. We look at the car market. I've actually had a podcast from a few months ago talking about how a lot of people now that are buying cars are people who shouldn't be buying cars. They have poor credit, but they're getting loans anyway. And then like in 2014 was the best year for the auto market, the most cars ever sold. It's because a lot of people are buying cars that shouldn't. Just like before the housing crisis, people were buying houses that shouldn't have been buying houses. Or some people that bought a house like, you know what? I guess now that interest rates are this low, I can now afford a much bigger house. And so then they bought the bigger house that they couldn't afford. And now this sort of mindset is what's caused by the low interest rates. And now the Krugmans of the world, They love this idea of low interest rates because then there's no incentive to save. And heck, a country can afford large deficits. So spend away. This is great. This is perfect for the Keynesian mindset that everything's about spending and consuming and consumer demand. And so anyway, let's get back to Greece here. And so in 2004, Greece, like a good addict, they came clean. And they're like, okay, guys, you know what? We kind of doctored our budget a little bit when we first came into the EU. And we understated our debt levels so that we could join you guys. I mean, we just want to be part of you guys' club here, We wanted to join in the prosperity. So anyway, now let's fast forward a little bit here. So Greece, really some problems in the Greece economy started to be seen in 2008 when the whole world was under that crisis. But then in 2010, it appeared that, okay, Greece, looks like you guys might be going bankrupt. So they actually received 2 international bailouts in 2010, totaling 240 billion euros, or that's about $269 billion. And now these bailouts, they came from the Troika. Now let's just clear this up here. The Troika is made up of 3 entities: the IMF, the ECB, which is the European Central Bank, and the European Commission. And so, so these bailouts, they came with strings attached. And now these strings they imposed austerity basically on the Greek people that, hey, you guys need to drastically cut your government spending, and you also need to raise your taxes, raise your VAT tax. And this austerity, many argue that, hey, this austerity didn't work because people point out the statistic. Well, hey, since 2008, Greece's GDP has fallen by 30%. And so, there's these people that blame it on the austerity imposed because of the bailouts. You know what's really crazy about that 30% decline in GDP since 2008? That's actually one of the most significant collapses in GDP ever by an advanced economy since 1870. And so, that's crazy. And actually, that's a much worse decline than what we experienced during the Great Depression, back in the 1930s. So anyway, there's the people on the other side saying, okay, well, it's the austerity that caused these problems. It's cutting the government. And these guys also, they point to, so you look at the unemployment rate. It's at 25% now. It's gotten worse. And they say, you look at the youth unemployment in Greece right now, it's at 50%. And so like you guys have seen on the news when they take the cameras to Greece, you see the protesters out on the streets, throwing marble or whatever the heck they're throwing. These guys that are protesting are anti-austerity protesters. And so these guys don't want the government to cut anything. These guys want more government. You can't cut my welfare. Are you kidding me? I rely on that. And so now I'm going to be getting into later why it's really what's made the Greece economy worse is them raising taxes and the government continuing to spend. They actually didn't abide by the stringent cuts that they were supposed to with their bailout terms. But anyway, let's just continue on with the Greece story here. So just recently, just back on June 30th, okay, this is when Greece defaulted on its $1.8 billion to the IMF. Now, this $1.8 billion that the Greeks owed, this wasn't like the total, hey, you guys owe me the total amount of your debt all at one time. No, it was a payment on the debt. And the Greeks couldn't afford a payment. That's like these guys buying cars, who shouldn't be buying cars in the first place, but they default on their car loans. Like, I can't afford this $300 a month car payment, so they stop paying it. Then it gets repossessed by the bank. Okay, that's what Greece did. And what happened was when the Greeks defaulted on that IMF payment, the ECB's like, okay, hey, we're not propping you guys up anymore. We're not going to provide you that emergency funding to the banks of Greece so that, we could help provide that stability. Nope, we're not doing that. So that is when the Greek people went rushing to the ATMs. They're pulling their cash out. That's when they imposed the capital controls and they limited cash withdrawals from ATMs to about $67 a day. So that's when all this was taking place. This was just, about 2 months ago now. Okay? So this is recent history. And so now the situation right now, what Greece owes in total is 320 billion euros. Or if you convert that to US dollars, that's $350 billion. So that's a big number in terms of, for Greece. Now you guys are probably you hear those numbers like, oh, $350 billion, that's not bad, damn. I mean, geez, we just wish our annual deficit would be that low. If you look at the U.S. economy, our national debt is at $18 trillion. So that 300 and some billion, that looks like a tiny amount. And that $18 trillion, that's not even figuring in our unfunded liabilities. But anyway, to put this in perspective of Greece's economy is the size of Dallas, Texas. So imagine Dallas, Texas being like, oh crap, hey guys, Washington, D.C., help us out. We somehow are $350 billion in debt. Now for a city, that is a lot of money. Holy smokes. So that is a significant amount of money. It actually comes up to Greece's debt is 177% of its GDP, which is a large number. In the US, we're just over 100%. So we're on the way to Greece. There's no question about that. Okay, so now you guys ask the question, well, so Greece, they've gotten all this debt. How did they become such a basket case? Well, Greece, it's a perfect example of a big bloated government, socialists run amok. And these guys, these citizens of Greece, these protesters, these anti-austerity protesters, these are the type of people that live off the teat of government. Yeah, and this is the problem that we are starting to see more and more in the United States. Looking at Greece's debt problem, 17.5% of it actually comes from pension costs. Yeah, a lot of people in Greece, they're just living off pensions right now. The retirement age in Greece is 57 years old. Just that right there, that is unsustainable. People retiring at 57, living on these nice government pensions, these poor little young schlubs, they have to work to provide for this 57-year-old's lifestyle. I mean, 57 years old, you are still perfectly fine to work. What can you possibly do? I mean, gosh, dang. And actually, a lot of these people, what they do is they retire at 57. And then they go to work in the shadow economy, so that they're not paying taxes at their second job, but they're still getting their pension on top of it. So these guys, they're living a pretty nice lifestyle, the ones that have been able to retire. And so, there's a lot of problems going on in Greece. And then there's also a very big problem of tax evasion. There's a lot of people that are hiding income from the government of Greece. And then actually, even for the people that do pay their taxes, the Greece government is so inefficient, they're actually having problems trying to collect the tax revenue. And actually, I found a very interesting graph that was from this Forbes piece. And the title of it is Getting a Handle on Greece and Its Problems. Now, it's this bar graph. It shows a list of countries. Basically, it's the countries on the graph. They're the worst in terms of outstanding, undisputed tax debt. Guess who has the worst outstanding, undisputed tax debt? Yeah, Greece. Greece is number one by a long shot. So Greece has the highest percent of uncollected taxes in the world. And then they also have, to boot, some of the worst tax evasion problems. But see, that's the thing. The Greece government, they have high tax rates. And when taxes get too high, people find a way to evade them, to get around them. And that's why some people argue, especially the supply-siders, they're like, hey, we need to have low tax rates that encourages less people to evade taxes because they realize, okay, you know what, that's fair. I'm willing to pay that. It's not worth me trying to find a workaround. I'm willing to pay those taxes, but also lower taxes, they're pro-growth. And a big problem with the Greece economy right now, it doesn't have any growth. It's actually declining. As I stated earlier in the podcast, Greece's economy's GDP has fallen by 30% since 2008. So Greece's economy is not growing, it's actually shrinking. Then they have these debts they're trying to pay for, and they can't because they keep shrinking. And so also with the high taxes in Greece, that's definitely not making the prospects any better for Greece's economy. How can the economy grow? Why will people want to start new businesses? Why will people want to take risks in the Greece economy when there's extremely high tax rates? There's no incentive to. You might as well move out of the country or work in the shadow economy. And that's what people are doing in Greece. So they're doing all the wrong things in Greece, and they have the bloated government. Seriously, everything that we're doing in the United States, we are heading in the direction of Greece. Ever since Obama, he came into office, he talked about getting our economy going, Bush, man, he put us in the ditch, but President Obama, he's going to get us out of the damn ditch, because Republicans, they stand for reverse on the little stick shifter, and the Democrats stand for the D for drive. And President Obama and the Democrats are going to pull the car out of the ditch and drive the economy forward. That was one of President Obama's little analogies he liked to use. How cute, right? But anyway, it was so funny when Obama talked about trying to get our economy growing again, but at the same time, President Obama talked about, well, we also need to increase taxes. So he wants things to grow, but at the same time, he's attacking the people, he's attacking the rich. Those are the job creators. Poor people don't hire other poor people. Poor people, by definition, don't have capital. It's capital, it's savings. That's where you get investment. The rich people can invest. The poor people can't. But if you save, you can then invest. Okay, anyway, I don't want to go off on another rant there. Let's just stick this episode to Greece. So what Greece needs, as I just stated, needs pro-growth policies. It needs to dramatically cut the size of government. When you cut spending of government, that's cutting taxes, basically. And also, they need to decrease taxes too. Taxes are too high in Greece. You need to have the right incentives in place so people will want to work. People will have an incentive to work. And then Greece also needs to stop receiving bailout money. Greece receiving bailout money all the time, it's like bailing out someone in your family that is broke and has a gambling problem. The guy's always broke, but you keep giving him money. Okay, I feel so sorry for this schlub. All right, I'm going to give him some money to help him out so we can have some food on the table. Then the next time you turn around, the guy's asking you for money again. Oh, did you eat at least? Well, I gambled it away. Yeah. And so actually, I know someone. Now, I'm going to keep this very broad, because I don't want to call the person out. But anyway, I know someone who says he's always broke, and I know he's had a gambling problem in the past. I don't know if he still does, but anyway, this guy, he's gambling a lot. Anyway, I've heard him say this. I kid you not. I am not making this up. He said, well, he's gambling so that he can afford to make his payments. I'm not kidding you. I'm seriously, this is not a joke. I've heard the guy say that. I'm not kidding you. That's what he said. And so giving Greece money is like giving Greece, Greece is being treated like a spoiled child. Let these guys hit rock bottom. We need to stop subsidizing bad behavior. The reason why Greece is getting bailed out is because many of the experts out there, they fear contagion. And that if Greece falls, then it will affect other countries. And it'll start this domino effect in the EU. Because basically they look at, if Greece doesn't pay us back that 320 billion euros, then the IMF, the ECB, and other European financial institutions, they're going to be out that money. And then that'll drive up their borrowing costs, and that can affect other debtor nations, which, there's plenty of them in the EU, like Portugal, Italy, Spain, the list goes on. And so, there's definitely some problems there. But then, like what just happened here on July 13th, Greece just got bailed out for a third time. 86 billion euro bailout package. Basically, over the next 3 years, that's supposed to help Greece out. Now, this bailout kind of signals that, hey, the EU, they still want Greece to stay within the EU. Because if they wouldn't have bailed them out, then, Greece would most likely, they're going to have to exit the EU. Or they call it the Grexit. But anyway, so the EU definitely wants to work with Greece, as that third bailout signals. But, They could still exit. We don't know. But anyway, that's where the Greece situation stands right now. And so they were just bailed out for the third time. They'll remain in the news. I'm so sick of this. It's like a ping pong match hearing about Greece. Oh no, they're okay. No, they're not. But you know what's really sad is that how Greece has dominated the news cycle. Greece makes up 2% of the Eurozone. Greece has a tiny economy, just as I stated earlier. Greece's economy is the size of Dallas, Texas. So here's a country that's getting all this attention, and it's so small. So now, what happens with the U.S.? We're on the way to Greece. We have our debt to GDP is over 100%. Greece is at 177%. Who's going to bail out the United States? We're the largest economy in the world. Nobody. That's the problem. Nobody can bail out the United States. That's why the central banks around the world will have to continue to print money. They'll paper over these problems until they can't paper over them anymore. And at that point, that's when there'll be a loss of confidence in the fiat currencies all around the world, and we could see a collapse of our currency. Okay, now that sounded kind of scary there. Well, that's definitely a possibility. That could happen. That's the way we're headed. I hate sounding like I'm just so dang pessimistic all the time, which I am pessimistic, as I've stated. I'm pessimistic in the short term. But long term, hey, I see it. We're going to hit rock bottom. People get their heads out of the sand, and I think it'll be for the better. People will come back to reality. People will stop realizing, hey, there's no such thing as a free lunch. You have to pay for that, or somebody else does, so that you can get that. Seriously, everyone is so economically illiterate today. It's unbelievable. But it's completely fine as long as the system is working. No, there's nothing going on. Everything seems fine for the most part here in the United States. In the U.S., we got this welfare state that's just more and more out of control. Now we have Obamacare, the government taking over our healthcare system, Frank Dodd taking over our financial institutions. It really does. It appears that there is not the political will to drastically cut spending in the United States. It appears that it's going to take a collapse to force the shrinkage of the government. And it's sad, but that is my opinion on what I see. And that's why I'm such a believer in buying gold, silver, protecting yourself, but not like living like it's the end days. Don't do that. But as long as you have that protection, as long as you have that insurance, continue doing what you're doing. Also remember this. If you're protected in all those ways, and like you listening to this podcast and other podcasts like this and reading books, trying to increase your knowledge on the subjects of the economy and economics and what's going on around the world. Knowledge is the most valuable commodity out there. And knowledge is the scarcest resource. Knowledge is what will get you through what's to come. And everything else that you've done to prepare is definitely going to help you too. But people in times of panics, in times of collapse, they will seek and they will try to find someone who knows what's going on. And if you can be that voice, if you can help these people weather the storm, you can help other people. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to help them out in financial ways. Just your knowledge of what you see coming in the future, because we understand economics here. We understand the past. We understand history. History often repeats or it rhymes. So, guys, let's just end it right there on this episode on Greece. I hope none of you guys fell asleep. I don't think I hear anyone snoring out there. But I thank you guys for listening. And if you guys can please help support the show, it would definitely help, with the costs that come with running this podcast. Just if you buy from Amazon, just go to justinmooreshow.com. More is spelled M-O-H-R, and I just have a widget on the right-hand side. You just click on that widget. That takes you right to Amazon. Then any purchases you make, I just get a % back commission on it. So it costs you nothing extra, but it helps support my show at the same time. So that would be fantastic if you could do that. I would really appreciate that. Again, guys, I thank you so much for listening. I will see everybody next week, and I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully, I won't have a cold. This is Justin Moore, signing off.